Okay, my name is Rich Feralazzo, and amateur archaeologist. I'm not a professor of archaeology or anything like that. I've been involved with this Canada Alamosa project since 2005. And what it is, I got involved through Earthwatch. And Judy, you said you know about Earthwatch. It's a nonprofit organization that has projects all over the world, whether it be environmental, climate, working with animals. This project in particular is in New Mexico. And Earthwatch has volunteers that work with experts in the field. And you just pay a certain fee and you fly out to Albuquerque, and we're all picked up in these big four-wheel drive Jeeps and drive down 3.5 hours on I-25 to get off and go another about 30 miles through boulders and canyons and creeks, and we finally get to a ranch. And it's an isolated ranch in the middle of a canyon, but it's all run by generators. You have hot and cold running water. We sleep in these nylon reinforced tents and cots, and it's just like being at home. I mean, it's just, it's really good. We have great meals and great conversation. We go from 6 o'clock in the morning to about 9:30 at night. We have guest lecturers who come and stay with us during the time. And usually these expeditions are running about 12, 13 days. And just to give you a little bit of background about the project, it was created in 1999. A combination of the Canada Alamosa Institute and Human Research Systems out of Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's a privately held ranch, so there's no government red tape or anything like that. But it was bought by Dr. Denny O'Toole and his wife. Now, Dr. O'Toole, he oversaw the restoration of President Madison's estate in Virginia. And it was one of the first projects that became a national landmark because they discovered a slave graveyard there. And so he has always been involved in archaeology and found that this was for sale. It's a 5,000 acre project or estate. I shouldn't say estate, it's in the middle of the desert. But he purchased it for the purposes of archaeological science, to really, because nothing had been done with this land since about the 1930s. So it was pretty much intact from that point of view, from archaeology point of view, and it's very rare that you find that. There weren't many raiders who came on to do pot hunting or anything like that. So when they bought the ranch, they partnered with Earthwatch, and they decided to come on in and start the mapping and surveying. And probably the most famous archaeologist in the Southwest, Dr. Steve Lexan from the University of New Mexico, he was part of the project, and his students in 1999 started the mapping and surveying of the first site, which was the Pinnacle Ruin. Now, I'm not sure where that name came from, but the other sites, Kelly Canyon, came from Dr. Kelly, who did the first research in the 1930s, and the Victorian Site. Now, if you're familiar with Southwestern history, the Victorian was Chiricahua Apache who led raids against white settlers and into Mexico. And so it was named the Victorian Site. But just to give you an indication, this is where the site is. Should I walk around or not? Let's just stay in one spot.
If you could, just make sure that we
can follow.
Can see it.
Okay. Well, I was telling Judy, it's in southwestern New Mexico. The closest town is Truth or Consequences. Okay, that's the name of the town. I'll tell you the story about that later. I told Judy the story about Truth or Consequences. And that's where it is, and it takes a while to get there. But once you get there, I'll tell you, at night, you look up at the sky, and you don't see anything but billions of stars, and it's just so beautiful. Shooting meteors, and it's just unbelievable out there. But the main goal of the project, it sits smack in the middle of a frontier or a boundary for the northern Anasazi Nation, or the Indian, their territory, going back now into 11th and 12th century, was northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. And the name Anasazi in Navajo means ancient ones. So we're trying to decide if there was the project, the canyon was occupied, abandoned, and reoccupied, or if it was the same biological, cultural traits of one people. The Mogollon people in the south, and their territory was going into Mexico and Arizona, southern New Mexico, Arizona, and Mexico. So they converged. They came up into the canyon. Why did they come into the canyon? Well, this particular area is just a well-watered oasis. The Rio Alamosa River is a deep underground aquifer that it goes down about 1,500 feet and it's forced to the surface, and it goes to about 2,000 gallons of water an hour. It's just unbelievable. And the streams are flowing throughout. It's just an oasis. So it was discovered by first the Anasazi coming from the north into the canyon. And they migrated there. And the reason they migrated was probably the same reason that happens throughout history. Whether it be climate change, raids, enemies coming in, topsoil erosion where they were. So they came here. They were the first people to come here. And where are we here? And they came to the Pinnacle Ruin. It was the first one, the Pinnacle, the first settlement. And they built pit houses. I'm not sure if anybody knows what a pit house is, but it's dug into the ground, approximately maybe 3 feet, the first ones. And people lived there. There were rooms that were connected. And then it was topped off with a roof, with post holes, and the roof were just earthen and mud, and you would climb through a ladder in the roof to get down into your abode, so to speak. And the people here who came to Pinnacle Ruin, was from about 1,000 to approximately 1120. And they were then joined by people from the south, the Mogollon people. And they built massive rooms at the Victorian Site. And so, I'm going to kind of jump around here, but the pottery shards that we found at the Pinnacle Site convinced us that it was very early. It was basically carbon painted shards. And how you achieve carbon painted shards is, you get Rocky Mountain weed, Rocky Mountain bee wax or bee weed combined with tansy mustard, and they would boil that into a goo and add some water and then apply it to the pottery, and that would give the blurred lines in the pottery. And that would show you that it was the people from this area, the Mesa Verde area in Colorado, that was their pottery. So you know that they were the northern people who came into the Pinnacle Ruin. But the Victorian Ruin, let me see. Anytime you want to ask a question, go ahead. I'm not sure if I can answer it, but as I said, I'm the amateur here, I'm not a professional. Okay, well here is an example of the Pinnacle Ruin, the smaller pit house. They didn't go deep into the ground. And whether it be the lack, whether it be a lack of technological advancement, we don't know yet. But as we get into the Victorian areas, there, the rooms were massive. We figure that there could be right now about 400 rooms in the Victorian area. And we've only explored a small percentage of that. The Victorian area or ruin were deeper rooms, deeper pit houses connected with hearths where you would cook, and ventilator shafts to get air coming in and out. And I was involved in one of the deepest ones. And do I have that picture here? Yeah. It's the one with the ladder. I was involved in that, and that went down. You had to have a ladder to go all the way down to the subfloor. And what's interesting about the Victorian site is we've been finding different types of pottery sherds there, which means to us that it was occupied, visitors came in, maybe relatives came in, different floors, as Judy would tell you, go down different levels, and here it could have been abandoned, reoccupied. They did some work to remodel the place, and the Victorian site lasted close to 225 years, much more so than the...
How deep did they go?
This one that I worked on, I'm going to say it was close to about 25, 30 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. But then the area that we were in is connected, so that the rooms were used for storage, used for grain, for as I said, for the storage for the grain for the winter. I mean, you were growing, these people in this well-watered oasis, they were growing maize, squash, they were hunting, they had evidence of wild turkey, deer, rabbit.
Were some of the rooms were actually their home area?
Yes.
And then was there some sense of a layout plan where here's storage, here's this, like a house
yes,
that we
because
would
the one that I worked on, a connecting room, so to speak, was we found charcoal and ash, and finding that would indicate that they were using maybe that for for cooking, kitchen. And another area we found basically garbage, and that's bone from the from the deer or from the elk. So that was so it was. These people were not dumb. They knew what they were doing for the last this long.
So their home, and it would be the entire village living within this. So
but the one thing that puzzles us the most is the Victorian site goes until about it goes into about 1300. So it's about 250 years. But we haven't found evidence. I'm not sure if anybody knows what a kiva is. It's a ceremonial so-called pit, a circular pit. And it would be dug into the earth, and it'd be used for religious ceremonies, for political discussions. Only men and boys were allowed. Sorry. And again, there would be a roof with a ladder, and you go down, that's how you would enter, with again a hearth and ventilator shaft. But usually in the Southwest, you would find a kiva, whether it be a small kiva or a large kiva, for like one every 45 to 50 rooms. And this is 450 rooms, and we have not had a chance, we haven't found one yet. And some of the theories about that is change of religion and destruction of the kiva by people coming in. And there, from the south, there was a new religion called the Salada religion that came in, and that was a woman-based religion. And they came up around this time, about 1250, 1300, and maybe with the conflict, there was conflict there, and there was destruction. But we should have found some sort of a kiva by now, but we haven't.
Maybe a male gravesite right now.
I'm sorry?
They buried all the guys in it.
Maybe they buried all the guys, okay.
But you know, when you mentioned that there was you found the different shirts, different types, was that all in one level?
No.
Or you're talking
No, we're
different
talking about
layers?
the different levels, and that's what's interesting, because we found Socorro, black and white. Now, these names, Socorro, Magdalena, there's no, now there is, but when people would name the pottery there, we found it here in Socorro, so we'll name it Socorro. Or whoever found it would name it after themselves. So, but there's Magdalena, red on black that we found, St. John's polychrome, which is a reddish with, again, black too, but not as precise. But different levels you would find that, which indicates that it was not just one biological culture, that it was occupied, abandoned, and reoccupied again. And some of the pottery, you can just pass this around if you want, but this is some of the pottery that we have found.
Now, did they go underground because it was so hot in the area?
That's the thing. These pit houses were warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Okay, and that's why. Of course, they had to be above ground to gather the water, whether it be snow melt from that happened or just going down into the canyon.
Now, the earlier group only went down 3 or 4 feet, you said.
Yeah, because but that's.
I wonder why that was.
I don't think our analysis of that was there wasn't a lot of people in that first site, so they didn't have to really go down and have different floors for people to live in. That they just lived in their own separate. Again, I'm just kind of haphazardly here, just kind of telling you everything, okay? Here is a deeper. You see the walls? And the walls, now Carl, our lead investigator, would tell you that if you go to the southwest and you see adobe wall or adobe rock 6 in a row in a line, it's the beginning of a ruin block. That's his philosophy. And this one here, you can tell this goes down like 3 stories. This was again in the Victorian site.
And so they built the wall.
Oh yes,
Wow.
they would build the wall. Yeah, they built the wall with mud, earth and mud and adobe, and hey, a couple thousand years later, it's still there. This is a piece of a actual pot that we found, and we put it together. I'll show you the actual finished product.
Is it dark or black like that?
Well, that's
What
the
they're
dark.
putting on it or how they're firing it?
That has how they fired it. This was in the I keep saying Pinnacle, Kelly Canyon site. This was the carbon-based paint with the, what did I say, the Rocky Mountain boxweed and the tansy mustard. Because that was lines that were blurred. But here, you would see mineral-based. And the mineral-based was they would ground into a pigment, the iron oxide or magnesium, and they would fire that up, and it would give you the straighter lines. That pot you see there, they actually put it together. We found all the pieces to it. And it's rare that you're able to find this. Because what would happen when people would abandon a site and move on, they would either take what they could with them or leave and either break the pots or ceremoniously do some kind of religious ceremony and just leave them there too. So you don't find a lot of intact.
Did you find a few though?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
good.
this one we put back together about 2 summers ago. We found a smaller Mimbres black on white pot that we were able to get out of the ground. I tell you, it takes a lot.
I like that example you're seeing in
Yeah.
there, complete.
I don't know if you saw that, John.
Well, I know in our digging, we've been
So
hoping
the
we can
piece that
find,
we found, and then actually a pot that was put together. We put it back together. Painstakingly put it back together.
yeah, in our diggings, we've been hoping to find a piece that was completely intact, but
Not yet.
we've been able to find those pieces.
Yeah. Well, we found some seed pots containing maize/corn and small little pots. Lots of bone fragments, and you can tell after you do a little of the studying if it's a elk bone or a deer bone or a wild turkey bone. But they grew, as I said, squash, corn, so they were very well fed. They were very happy there, because I go out there in June and the weather, it's in the low 90s, but the humidity is like 10%. And at night it gets down to 45, 50 degrees, so it's beautiful. Now in the winter, they just experienced the coldest temperature they ever had in the canyon. It was 14 below zero.
Wow.
And the pipes, when you come up later, I'll show you all these pictures, but there's 3 structures in the ranch, and the pipes on the second floor all burst, went through the ceiling. And they've had to do a lot of work in replacing them. But 3 days later, it was 52 degrees. So
Well, how deep is the canyon?
we're at an altitude of 6,200 feet, is where we're at. The actual dig sites to Victoria, we've got to climb another 1,500 to get up there. So in the mornings, Carl makes the hot chili omelets for us with the green chilies, and we step on out there and climb, and we're happy. But as I said, we have the people who wrote these books, In Search of the Old Ones, and House of Rain, Craig Child. These are guest lecturers that stay with us, and Steve Lexan, who last year wrote a book called The History of the Southwest, and the New York Times Book Review gave it just an unbelievable review. And the guy is very brilliant. He's very, very smart. But as I said, we're getting well known throughout the country, our project here, and it's fun to be part of. If you've ever been into archaeology, you know.
Were you fortunate enough to find any of the existing ladders, original ladders?
Just pieces, just like we found pieces of the post hole for the roof on these flat pit houses. We found some of the old pieces of the.
Were you able to determine what the ladders were made out of?
They were made out of there's pinon and cottonwood throughout the whole canyon. So through analysis, it looks like they were made of cottonwood, because this is not a barren landscape at all.
Yeah.
It's all along the riverbanks. You find wild watercress, you find the cottonwood trees, you find the pinon, the juniper.
Well, the steps, did they tie them on?
They tied the, and then as we climb up to the actual dig site at Victoria, you're going along the old footpaths of the Mogollon people.
What did they use to tie them on with? Grass or something? Twist up the grass and...
Well, they would, you got me on that, but I know there's a form of a plant there that is like a bamboo. I can't remember what the name of it is.
Oh, okay.
But that's what they would use to tie them up.
Would they have made cordage, probably?
Yeah, I would think so. But, that's the second site. is the Victorian site. Now the third site, I keep mixing them up and I apologize. This is the Pinnacle site. The Kelly site was the first one, okay? Now the Pinnacle site, these people were, all indications, were not very nice. And they were the last ones to come in. And they built fortifications along the cliff walls and for defensive purposes. And it looks like, from all indications, is that they did mix with the Victorian people, but they split away. And all of a sudden, these people were the only ones left in the canyon. So, you know, when in archaeology, as you know, the more answers you have, the more questions come up. And we kind of wonder what happened to the people at the Victorian site. They kind of scattered. And the people at the Pinnacle site, which is this is the earliest or latest? These are the last people, so I guess the most recent. Thank you. These are the most recent people. And from what we can gather, with pottery sherds, that this was a mixture of the Anasazi from the north and the Mogollon from the south. So there was trade, and then there must have been some kind of a big conflict. And these were the only people that were left. And they did, let's see, do I have any other? Here are some of the bone fragments that we found. And never found any human fragments though. So that kind of concerns us as to why we haven't found humans. I don't know what happened to them, but we haven't found any.
Do you have any idea why they, one group left the area and the other one come in?
Well, one group left. When people leave, you know, they do so for a number of reasons, whether it be drought, and after 1350, there was like 200 years of drought in the canyon. Topsoil erosion from all the years of planting the maize and the squash. Fire, and fire is very prevalent in New Mexico, especially right now. I don't know if you follow the news at all, but they already have wildfires burning near Silver City in New Mexico. They say it's going to be a terrible season this year. And conflict, new religion coming in. People are leaving to go to maybe some other areas, maybe up to, maybe you're at Chaco Canyon, which is north, gone up there, or south to Pecame, Mexico. This is one of the theories of Steve Lexan. He thinks the canyon, with the drought, with the fires, with the topsoil erosion, people left. They just didn't die off, but they went up to what he calls the Chaco Meridian, straight up to Chaco and straight down to Pecame. He believes that it was a straight line and they all followed the astronomical signs to go to the different areas. But now, so here we are in, 1350, 1400, the canyon is pretty well abandoned right now. And it stays abandoned until, well, the Spanish came in 1540 with Ornate and Coronado, but they came in from Mexico and they went into Laguna Pueblo, the Zuni Pueblo, and they really didn't hit this area too much. But the Apache, of course, had horses, and that was the first time the horses came in. And so they see all these fortifications and somewhat ruins, and they decide to settle in the area. And the Chiricahua Apache, they made this their home for quite a while. And what happened then, if you go back into history in this region, I'm kind of bouncing around, so just tell me to stop if I'm... But this house right here, this is one of the homes, or one of the areas, one of the homes in the canyon, This is called the Montoya House. The Montoya were the first Spanish settlers to settle in, it's called the Monticello area, where we have the ranch. And they were the owners of the property until the Maytag people, the washer and dryer people, bought the whole place in the 1920s. And they had it for quite a while. But this land where this Montoya house sits is where you've heard of the Apache chief Victorio and Geronimo, of course. But supposedly right in this area right here is where Victorio and General, was it Miles or Crook, met to ask for his surrender. And I don't know if you saw the movie Geronimo, an American Legend, but that's where that all takes place, was kind of right there.
So it could have been 100 years between one group moving out
Yes.
and another group moving
Moving in, it was stayed
Oh,
abandoned.
okay.
By that time then, vegetation would have come back, there would have been
Maybe
regeneration of trees, water would have come back, but when everybody left, it was pretty well a wasteland. What's different than today? You know, we destroy everything and then we get up and move away to somewhere else. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, you know, what the project is. Now we're going back in October, and we're going to try. Actually, let me backtrack. Back in November, Denny and Carl took a small group of people back to the Victorian site, and they think they might have uncovered a trench leading to a Butte, but they don't know yet. So we're all going to go back in October. And that's a great time of the year to go, is October. It's nice and cool.
And how many days will you spend out there then?
It's usually 11, 12, 13 days.
How come so short?
That's about all that people can devote. But there's usually 3 groups, 2 in June and 1 in October, that go. But then,
Volunteers?
yeah, volunteers. But then, during the year, you have the students from New Mexico State University, Eastern New Mexico, who go out there and do analysis also. But the 3 projects happen at that time of the year. Now, we also have a geology professor who's part of our group, and she is just brilliant. And she tries to determine the adobe wall contents, and just goes right into all those details. But one thing she has analyzed is that the clay used in a lot of this pottery did not come from the canyon. It was brought in from the north or brought in from the south.
Why was that?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you the answer to that, but that's what she analyzes. That's what she believes, that the clay in the canyon was not suitable for the strength for firing, and that it was brought in. So there was trade.
Was that used for just the pottery in there, or?
It was used for, well, actually pottery and cooking, you know, utensils, that kind of thing, but
Oh, okay. It wasn't used for the homes or anything?
that was mixing the adobe and the mud, earth and mud is what they used for that to build. And then, I'll tell you, it's like concrete. It just, it stood the test of time, that's for sure.
Did they figure out why they had different levels?
Well, as you go down to level, 10 centimeters is a level, so you keep going down. And that it was occupied, abandoned, reoccupied, remodeled, different potteries were found in the different levels, and that's what we think, that there was more advancement in the homes than at the first site, the Kelly Canyon site. And they would last for more than probably 10, 20 years, where the Kelly Canyon site, the first site, they weren't built that well. But this, you know, it's like any home. After about 20 years, you have to do some remodeling. And that's what they did.
And that one you worked in where they went down 25 feet, now, was that clay all the way down?
Yeah, it was, well, yeah, the walls. Here, where are those? What did I do with that? you had the adobe wall going all the way down. And then the different levels, you would come to a floor, a subfloor, and stop, and you take your analysis, and then, hey, look over here. There's a connecting area, and that went down again. And so, yeah, it's really neat. It's very, very neat. Let me see what else I got here.
Is there evidence that as there was the different layers, that it was even more advanced, the fact that they spread out a little bit more?
We have found in one of the levels that there were actually we found 2 hearths and 2 ventilator shafts as we went further down. And it means that they were probably drawing air above. It was, you know,
Really
that many families may have lived, yeah, many families may have lived in the one area. Yeah, but, and you gotta figure, this is going anywhere from 1200 to 1400, the years. Then we get to going to the Apache. Montoya Butte, which is this right here. This was a sacred shrine to the Apache. And this is on the land of the ranch. The Montoya Butte, and I've climbed this. You climb up, and then you gotta go way up to the top. And on the top, you find ceremonial beads, and you find some pottery sherds that were there before the Apache got there. But we leave everything up there, of course, and that's not smoke signals, okay? But that's quite a climb to get up to.
You still find pieces of shroom stuff up there?
Yeah.
I think over the years, it'd been all picked over.
Well, it's not the easiest place to climb up there, and this is on private land. So really, yeah, this is on the ranch.
Oh, okay.
So the people who, go up there, I mean, it's an all-day climb to get up there. When you get up here, you're up about 9,300 feet.
Oh.
And the ranch is at
500?
No, 5,800 feet. So you're climbing. You've got quite a climb to get up there. And then when you get back down, you're ready to just collapse. But now the canyon, with the archaeology project going on, it's also a boom for movie sets. And I don't know if you know anything about New Mexico movie industry, but Governor Richardson has, well, he's not governor any longer, but he gave the movie industry incentives to really come in and do filming. Now, some of the movies, one in particular is called The Missing. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. Ronnie Howard directed it with Cate Blanchett and Tommy Lee Jones. That movie, most of it, was filmed right on the ranch. And if you've seen the movie, there's a flooded canyon. The rains come in, and Tommy Lee Jones has to save his granddaughter. But that's called Christmas Canyon. And Christmas Canyon, the way the sun shines in it, the rocks turn different colors, red, green. And I know I walked the canyon, and I know where all that took place. It's really neat when you see that in a movie. And so that's one movie that was filmed there. The last, Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford, the beginning of that was filmed at the White Sands National Monument.
I think a lot of the 40s and 50s westerns was...
Oh, I can tell you a story. If you want to jump around here, I'll tell you a story about the 40s and the 50s, the westerns. In Gallup, New Mexico, there's a place called the El Rancho Hotel. And all the rooms are named after Hollywood stars. And I was talking to the innkeeper there, and she was telling me that, oh yeah, during the 40s and 50s, all the westerns that were filmed out here, we had John Wayne and Montgomery Clift and all those guys. And the stories about John Wayne being on the second floor in the balcony. He was throwing whiskey bottles at the cars, because that's right on Route 66. And that who's the other guy? Tex Horn? Is he was a big Western star? He rode his horse into the bar. I mean, it was the Gallup was a cool place too. It's a neat. That's where all the trading takes place, and jewelry and.
Quite a history there.
It is. It really is. Richardson's Trading Company. Just getting back to the movies, the one that's coming out this summer. The name of it is Cowboys Aliens, and that's with Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig, who's the latest James Bond. And some of that was filmed just on the other side of the ranch.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So it's and of course, what was the one with the bikers a couple of years ago? Wild Hogs was filmed in New Mexico too. So a lot of New Mexico is used as a big movie set these days. But questions? Anybody, please? I mean, I've just kind of jumped around here.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting. I mean, it's really a neat project. And of course, you know, you're given a dig kit by Carl when you come in, and the dig kit consists of course, the trowel and tape measure and level. So you got to take measurements: southeast quadrant, northeast, south, so forth. And you know, it's very important. You have to make detailed notes and detailed profiling of your dig. Because if you find a St. John polychrome shirt, and somebody asks you a week later, well, where did you find that? What level? We found it on level 4, and it was right here. And as you know, Judy, the notes have to be detailed. Yeah. So what we would do, of course, you dig put the dirt in the buckets, and then you screen to see if there's sherds, bone, ash, charcoal. And then when you bring them back, you wash, catalog, and I mean, this is not just, oh, I found this, here it is, and so forth. I mean,
Are you using 1/4 inch on-site screen, or?
actually, no, it's even less than that.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it was 1/8. We have a ranch manager who takes care of the whole property. He built the screens and everything, so he's.
Do they do any flotation or any?
Yeah, the flotation for plant species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some of that that has been done also to determine what we have, and yeah, so.
Well, the west portion of the catalog and all that, we've done that, but not on this scale.
Yeah, I mean, this was sitting there in the sunroom, so to speak, and you know, you've got the buckets with the water, and of course you're washing, and then you use a toothbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know the whole bit. Oh yeah.
How much fun is that?
Yeah. And you have to. You got to know what you're looking at too, whether it's sherd, whether it's ash, whether it's charcoal, and every line has to be cataloged. Yes.
I had one question about the kiva.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying like you thought 45 to 50 rooms and you should have found one.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking that the kiva was set off from the living quarters away.
That's where this trench is being dug right now. That was in November, where we think we might have found the beginnings of the kiva. Is off of the
it's
so-called
not-
plaza. No,
It's not in
no,
the living quarters.
no, because it's not in the living quarters because, as I said, it's restricted.
Right.
It was restricted to
And
men,
big ceremony.
and ceremony, religious, and no, it wasn't part of the living quarters at all. Now, if you go up to Aztec National Ruins near Farmington, they rebuilt a kiva based on what they think it looked like. And boy, I'll tell you, this is beautiful with the roof circular, and inside were different areas for, you could tell it was for religious ceremonies, or for dancing, or for whatever. And if that's how these kivas looked, these people knew what the heck they were doing. I mean,
It's amazing, the
It is.
engineering.
oh, well, you go
The
up
knowledge that they knew.
you go up to Chaco Canyon, and the roads in Chaco Canyon pretty much don't lead anywhere. I mean, people that were coming in for big yearly celebrations, for trading, or astrological signs. Everything was astrological. I mean, they would just find their way that way. And during the winter and the summer equinox, I mean, the exact second, the sun would shine right through. I mean, just amazing how intelligent these people were.
Yeah.
And we think we're the most intelligent
Well,
beings.
the fact of, just the fact of
But we
being
can't
able to
figure out
build
how they did it.
underground.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
Pyramids.
And we can't build roads without potholes?
I mean, just the fact that they built the tunneling and everything underground, to know that, to know how much
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
strain it was gonna take,
That's
how
right.
much tension to
That's
be
right.
able to put
Mhm.
against it, that's amazing.
It is. It's very amazing to me. And that's what makes this project and all the projects out there so fascinating. But I've got a book here if you want to take a look on pottery. Some of the books that were written by the authors who came or who do come to the project with us. I was talking with John, and American Archaeology did a whole project on you guys, but they also did one on us in the spring of 2009, where we had the editors and photographers and story, and people were writing the show. They came out. And come on up, look at this, and any questions, happy to answer
How
them.
long do they intend to continue to work?
Oh, well, that's a good question. We're looking at about another year. And then what's going to happen in, the website was just developed, that was just finished at the end of last year. Then we're looking at a quote-unquote traveling show. But the first expedition, or first exhibition, will be in 2013 at the Pueblo Indian Cultural Center in Albuquerque.
So they'll take the
Yeah.
finds
And
the
that's where it's
story
going to
on
be.
the boat.
It's going to be, I think, in
Wow.
May through October of 2013
That's
is where it's going to be. So that's going to be cool too. Yeah. And I would say over the years, there's been thousands of people who have analyzed our findings at New Mexico State University, doing archaeomagnetic testing. We're still hopeful that last year we may have found some of the earliest, if not the earliest, occupation in the canyon by this piece of pottery that wasn't supposed to be there, and it was there. So whether it be did they trade it or did it come there, we just don't know yet. But
Somebody passed it through and lost it there.
yeah, there you go. They could have done that too.
How is it funded?
Well, it's privately funded by the O'Tools. It's funded by, when you're an Earthwatch volunteer, you pay money to go out there.
Sure.
And they're always looking for more funding too. And I have my own business, and I know people so-called in Chicago and trying to solicit funds. It's not the easiest thing,
No.
especially now with the economy. It's archaeology is not high on people's list right now for donations.
Everyone's not just living.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how it's funded, and done a good job. I mean, there's still a little money left over so they were able to do the November and dig for 4 days to get the trenching in there. So
That's great.
yeah,
So hopefully farm will keep it.
yeah. And what's neat about it is to get out to Albuquerque, you take Southwest Airlines, 6:30 flight, direct flight, get you right in there in 2.5 hours, and if you want to stay in Albuquerque, but if you want to do another drive, we can usually get back down to the ranch by around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we sit around and have great food and great conversation, and
That's nice.
it's neat. It's neat. And then you sleep under the stars in these tents, and it's go. A few rattlesnakes here and there, but you carry your anti-venom kit with you, so that's no big deal. But and elk all over the place. You see them, especially in October. You hear them at night, and
That's
yeah, they're good eating too. But come on up.
Thank you, Rich.
Well, yeah, hopefully I
Yes.
enlighten you a little bit, and if I have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you, if I can. Last year we saw a double rainbow with about 7 different colors. It was just so beautiful after a short rainstorm.
Mhm.
Oh, it was just beautiful, just gorgeous. Oh. And great hiking out there too, but you never want to go by yourself. And take somebody with you.
How many are usually in the group working?
I think last time we had 12.
Mhm.
That's
And that's
just the
volunteer.
volunteers.
Yeah.
But then there's the ranch manager, his wife, and then Denny and Trudy who own the land, the visiting professors, like Steve Lexan, and geologists, other archaeologists. I mean, there's always people coming and going. And just one last thing. Last year we had some Native American, the Chiricahua Apache, come up to the site because they had heard that there was a battle there. And sure enough, one of the gentlemen brought they call the metal finders,
Mhm.
and we found Civil War buttons, cartridges.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really neat. And then seeing them, they were blessing the land, and it was a neat afternoon to see them do that. And of course, then they said, here we go, you massacred us again. But there's just a lot out in New Mexico. And as Morris will tell you, my friend over there, I went out there and I bought the land. I have 40 acres out there. But it's a neat place.
Are you gonna dig a hole and live underground?
No, I'm not going to dig a hole and live underground, but I do have the septic and the well in.
That's a good start.
Did you
Yeah.
find water or oil?
Well, no, I found water and I was lucky. I only had to go down 300 feet. And here, that's considered a lot, but down there, I mean, you're going down 800-900 feet.
You're kidding.
No, at $30 a foot, you're talking.
Now they have bottled water, you can buy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bottled water to wash your clothes.
Or take a shower. But they have like 3 wells on the property at the ranch. And of course, with the Rio Alamosa River right there, going down like 50, 60 feet to hit the wells there. And beautiful water. Oh, the water tastes so
I was
good.
wondering, it's good.
Oh, it's delicious. But also as you drive through what's called the Box Canyon, I don't think I have a picture up here, but that's where the area where the sacred Caliente Springs were for the Apache. And you have to hike to get in there, but there's a story that Geronimo was soaking in the springs one day when the soldiers were all around trying to get him. Just sat there and soaked and got up and escaped. I've heard that story a couple of times. That's a real sacred area. They say hiking only. This is sacred ground. Do not disturb. Do not take anything. And I just heard that a University of Chicago professor was just arrested in New Mexico for going on private land and taking whatever. I tell you, in Utah, and New Mexico, and Arizona, they don't take that too lightly out there. That guy he's in some trouble. Oh, it's gorgeous.
The pottery, yeah. So much
Yeah.
more colorful.
Mhm.
Obviously.
But so feel free to.
Okay, well, thank you, Rich.
Okay.